And we are live. Welcome in, everybody tuning in on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. This is the Slate. We start in the 5 o'clock hour Eastern time, 5 Eastern in the afternoon, that is, of course. And we take you up until 6 o'clock. Tonight is Monday, which means we do have Monday Night Football to wrap up Week 10. We will get to that. We will also look ahead to Week 11. We have a hockey guy here in Geoff Ulrich as well. Matt Meiselman can break down hoops. So any questions you have in relation to tonight's hockey and or basketball slates, we will certainly entertain them. But we do start the show on a Monday by reacting to what happened Week 10 Sunday. I'm the blabbering mouth, Brendan Glasheen, your host for tonight. Hope you're both doing well. Geoff, Titans win again. How you feeling about your Titans? I love putting that on your plate, that they're your Titans. I know you've said all along, I don't think they're this great team, but like, come on, man, your Titans, they're rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I adopted them back when they were like the underdogs and they were great value. I mean, I kind of understand why people may not want to bet them at this point. They've kind of delved in. I haven't even looked at their odds yet. I think they're getting close to like, the favorites in the AFC. I think they're still behind the Bills, but I can kind of understand why people might be lukewarm on betting them here. But I do think that they were undervalued for a long time, and even at the start of the year. So they'll be my team, mainly because I already have a big piece of them. But yeah, I mean, you could look at them, for conference winner. I mean, the AFC, we can head there first, I guess, plus 500, second favorites. I don't know. I think that this probably isn't the time to get in on them. You wait till they lose a game and then you take a chance. I just think this team is scrappy. Their defense is playing better now. There's just multiple ways they can win games now. And again, this AFC is wide open. So yeah, they're still my team, but you might want to wait a couple weeks to bet them. Wait till the Patriots become the second favorites, which will probably happen by the end of next week. So
Meiselman, something's up with Geoff because the last two shows we've done together, he brings up the Patriots first. I think he's trying to bait me and see if I'll turn into Kaufman and make this a Patriots discussion for the next half hour. I will not do that. I'm glad he mentioned the Tennessee plus 500 odds to win the conference, because guess who's right there with them? The Kansas City Chiefs. Are they back to normal? Plus 500 to win the conference, plus 1,100, 11 to 1 to win the AFC. Oh, pardon me, win the Super Bowl. What do you think, Meiselman? Are the Chiefs back after that thrashing last night of the Raiders?
Possibly. I guess it depends what we mean by back. I still think inconsistency is going to be a little bit of a problem. They played really well, and I think we had talked about in previous weeks that this was lingering. Like there was going to be a game at some point where they were just clicking and everything looked fine. I think that we kind of assumed that it might happen a couple weeks ago, and then there was the weird game where Aaron Rodgers didn't play, so they didn't really need to do that much on offense to win. They only gave up one score. I think the Patriots might be a better team though than both the Chiefs and the Titans.
There it is.
But at the same time, I do think it's fair to put the Titans in the conversation as the favorite for the AFC, just because they're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed in the first round bye now. Like that is a really big deal. And because the Bills lost their game to the Jaguars, the Titans do have a game in hand on them, and they have a tiebreaker. So I think that that's the main reason why it's fair to be very optimistic about the Titans right now. I still think they're probably an above average but not great team. I think they're a decent team, but they just are in a really good spot in the standings now with this recent run of wins they've had. Julio Jones being out is a concern. Derrick Henry being out is probably less of a concern. I think that no one's great this year. We've kind of come to realize that in the whole NFL, no one's great. There isn't one really, really major standout team. So being in the driver's seat for a number 1 seed is probably more important than actually being really good, because we don't actually know who's really good. So that's why I'm more bullish on the Titans now. Not to say that you should be betting them at their current odds, but I think that like it's reasonable that they make it to the Super Bowl now.
All right, I'll go there because both of you have mentioned the New England Patriots. And from a value standpoint, I think they are worth bringing up. You both made some good points. Patriots have yet to play Buffalo, a team they do need to play twice. They have yet to play Tennessee. If they win Thursday night, which we can certainly discuss Thursday night's game, and what do you know, more injured running backs, maybe on both sides of the ball, not moving the line all that much, Meiselman. But if the Patriots take care of business this Thursday, which is a big if, it's on the road, short week, they've yet to play Tennessee. They don't play Kansas City this year. The value is there in New England at plus 1,100 to win the conference because of the unknowns going forward in the schedule. Buffalo twice, Tennessee one more time. there's some appeal there. There's some appeal there. I don't know, but I'm curious now with Kansas City because they're minus 115 now to win the AFC West. Does that plus 500, does that have any chance of inflating, or is that just going to keep moving closer to zero? I fear it's going to move closer to zero. Is the time now to go get Kansas City? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I think what we have to keep in mind, though, is what I kind of was mentioning before with the Titans is just the structure of the playoffs is a huge deal here. So the reason that I'm not more bullish on the Patriots at that plus 1,100 is because they still likely will not win their division, which means they have to play a road game in the first round, probably multiple road games to get to the Super Bowl. It's still going to be a tough road for them. So that's what's holding them back, is that the Bills are a better team. They could beat them twice and pass them. It's just they're in a division with likely the best team in the AFC. So that just makes it hard. Not to say that they can't do it. It's just, that's affecting their odds. In the AFC West, though, teams have kind of started to fall apart around the Chiefs, and they may be able to win the division at 9-8. So that is definitely the reason I would say that the Chiefs are only plus 500 right now. The Patriots are longer odds, even though I think New England is actually a more well-rounded and better overall team. The Chiefs have an easier road to the playoffs and to the Super Bowl at the moment. So that's really the biggest factor for me.
Notice we have not discussed a team out of the AFC North. Kind of a mess this week. Bengals on the bye. Ravens kick off the week losing in Miami. Cleveland gets destroyed by New England. And then you got the Steelers and Lions, a tie. Oh, just perfect. Just a perfect way for that game to end. What do we make of that division? I mean, talk about the mediocrity of the conference. The AFC North, Geoff, does a pretty good job of representing that, the way that division looked this week.
Yeah, the AFC North is one of those divisions. I think it's actually okay to buy low on, and I'd probably be buying low on the Bengals here. The Ravens are really lucky to have the record they have. You look at the Bengals too, like their schedule. I don't want to say it's easier, but I mean they do have like the non-division winner schedule. Like they have the Raiders still, the Chargers and the Broncos and 49ers are all very beatable teams right now. So are the Steelers and the Ravens. So like realistically, the Bengals are live in all their remaining games. They didn't look good the last couple times out. I get it, but I mean, things can switch so quickly. And I think all these teams are just kind of meh. They've got games in hand and stuff like that against division opponents. So yeah, I mean, I'm not looking to any of these teams to go far in the playoffs, but I don't mind the value there on Cincinnati to win the division plus 400. I will say this, all the bets we've mentioned, and Matt kind of mentioned this, the Chiefs to win the division, I think you're still getting good value at minus 115. That division is just falling apart. Like the Chargers aren't a good team. The Raiders, I think there's just too much going on there over the last few weeks with Ruggs and John Gruden for them to get it together. I think they're toast. So realistically, you're getting the Chiefs straight up with a game in hand over the Chargers. I think that's great at minus 115. But since we're talking about the AFC North, if I was targeting anyone, it would be the Bengals, but I don't think anyone in that division is making a run this year.
Well, and the big highlight too yesterday, Teddy Bridgewater not tackling a player against Philadelphia. Yes. Like, I get it. Business decision for Teddy B. As we all know, he's always trying to get that next contract, but it's not great when you're trying to keep that locker room tightly knit, right?
Anyone you give a pass to, it's the guy who had his leg almost fall off in practice because he got so injured. But you're right. It was a bad look.
And, yeah, it was a bad look. And it's like, all right, how do you get behind this guy? You know, I mean, it's a recipe that might not work out. So, okay, that's good to know. I mean, you think there's value in Kansas City at minus 115. Let's go to the NFC. I'm still intrigued by this 6-7 seed thing. We discussed this a bit on Friday, and Steve Buchanan, Meiselman, was like, his way to pivot off the conversation was, well, people want to come on the show and know what they want to bet on Sunday, and that's fair. But see, now it's Monday, and we have to go big picture and look ahead, I think, at least, coming out of the week. And, well, I mean, Carolina, well, first of all, the Saints are still in position as the number 6 team, 6 and 7, number 6 team in the NFC. Saints a yes to make the playoffs at minus 150 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Then you see the Vikings at plus 160. You wouldn't feel great about that. The Niners are at plus 300, and so are the Carolina Panthers. Yep, taking the cheese. Cam Newton comes back. I'm back! Cam Newton feels great about himself, throws a touchdown too. Robbie Anderson's happy. Christian McCaffrey's healthy. Matt Rule makes a genius decision giving Cam Newton $4.5 million guaranteed. And what do you know? Carolina's next 3 games. Home Washington, at Miami, home Falcons. Still got to play Tampa twice. But anyway, Carolina, interesting team there, Meiselman. They're the number 7 seed in the NFC. Who's winning? Who's getting in the postseason in the 6 and 7 spots in the NFC?
Well, addressing everything that you said up to that last point is going to be much easier than the last question because I have no idea. But it is telling that the Panthers are still only 3 or 3.5 point favorites at home this week against a Washington team that won't have Chase Young. And maybe that line moves a little bit more because that is a really big injury. But Carolina has had such an inconsistent year. I guess they maybe have their quarterback situation in a better spot than when Darnold was playing. They do have McCaffrey healthy. So who knows? I think that they are live there, but I think some of these other teams are better. I think Seattle gets it together at some point. I think if the Niners win tonight, which we'll get to, they're in a good spot. I think the Vikings are a better team probably than all of these teams. They played this terrible game at home against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago in primetime, and then they just went into Baltimore and almost won, ended up losing in overtime, and then won at the Chargers. Like the Vikings have the potential to put together some wins too, and their game this week against the Packers will be a pretty big deal for playoff seeding also. So I'm a little lower on the Panthers than some of these other teams. They certainly have a shot though. I think the call you made, I think it was last week on the Saints coming off of, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, it was the Saints coming off of their win against Tampa. They were still plus 300 to miss the playoffs. Like that's looking really good right now because that team, I don't know what happened that game against Tampa that they were able to win there, but I mean, they just lost to Tennessee and now like they're right on the bubble with everyone else. So like to me, that was the better value than getting Carolina plus 300 now was the no on the Saints at plus 300. Then they're about 50-50 now. Yeah, you have it at plus 120. So yeah, the NFC is wide open. Just one more thing quickly. I want to say on the Chiefs.
The bottom is wide open.
The bottom is wide open. Yeah, I want to go back to the Chiefs for just a second.
Oh, sure. Yes.
The reason that I'm not as optimistic there is the Chiefs still have a pretty tough upcoming schedule and another bad game or two, and they still could miss the playoffs. Like, yes, they could get hot and make this Super Bowl run, and we'll look back on the season and say, oh, this was so obvious. Like, who thought Patrick Mahomes would actually be bad for a whole year? Like, this was never going to happen. The Chiefs were always for real. But they're playing games against Dallas, Denver, Raiders, Chargers, Steelers, road game against the Bengals. They end in Denver. There's no easy games left. I don't think any of those, like none of those are unwinnable either. Those are like, to me, that sounds like a bunch of coin flips. A couple maybe leaning more in one direction than the other, but the Chiefs could lose games the rest of the way just because they're playing quality opponents. So like, I still think, I mean, this is generally always going to be my lean as far as takeaways for the NFL is anything can happen. But in the Chiefs case in particular, we've seen so much inconsistency and they're playing teams that have also had so much inconsistency that I really wouldn't be surprised if they go 2-4 the rest of the way. They go 5-1, you know, like it really seems like it could break in any direction.
So, Geoff, I want your thoughts on the NFC as well. And you know, look, Meiselman makes a good point about the Vikings, and it makes more sense when you see the number at plus 160 to make the playoffs. I'm not someone who wants to trust Kirk Cousins, but to be fair, since the loss at home on Sunday night to Dallas, they have played consecutive good games. And let's remember, like Green Bay hasn't been great. I know they shut out Seattle, so defensively, I guess Green Bay's played well. They played well against Kansas City without Aaron Rodgers in victory. Or pardon me, in a loss to Kansas City, but it's not like they allowed a ton of points to the Chiefs. Say they had Rodgers, maybe they win that game. So it's not like the Packers have played great the last couple of weeks. You actually get it at plus 100 right now if you take the Vikings at plus 2.5 this week.
The Packers haven't played great? Is that what you said? What are you talking about? They're 8-2. We got to give some teams credit here, man.
The last 2 weeks.
Dude, they just like held Russell Wilson to no points. How is that not playing good?
No, I said defensively they played well.
Yeah, to both of your guys' points, the offense has been bad.
This is a Brendan Glasheen bias. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw for 40 points, all of a sudden it's a bad game. Anyways,
again, I backed the Packers on Thursday Night Football. I
disagree with this take that all the teams are bad. There are some good teams out there, and the Packers are one of them. They have really improved defensively. They don't even have their best defensive player in the lineup. I'm not of the opinion that the Vikings are bad either. They've had some bad luck. They could definitely be in the playoff race, but I mean, I'm not going to start taking them over the Packers. Like, I'm not going to start saying this game should be a pick 'em or something, or the Vikings should be small home favorites. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is back. The Packers are getting healthier on offense. Assuming they don't have another COVID outage. I mean, I'll take the Packers here if it stays under 3. Nobody wants to give them respect, apparently. I mean, I don't know. Their defense just about won them a game against Patrick Mahomes without Jordan Love. I mean, what else do they need to do to get respect? I love the Packers this year. I think everyone's just kind of overlooking them like they still have a bad defense or something like that. So in this game this week, no, I mean, I think it's not maybe like my favorite spot, but if it stays under 3, I would definitely lean Green Bay. Minnesota is an up and down team. We saw they looked good last week, but I mean, it's the Chargers aren't the Chargers defense has been eroding for a while. So how much emphasis do we put on that? And it was still close at the end. So I think when it comes down to Minnesota, I think I would still prefer to just go with the bigger odds with Carolina. That's probably right. Like Minnesota is probably a better team, but I think Carolina gets a little pop from Cam. I think they have a good defense. And I think at the bigger odds, I would rather take them to make the playoffs over Minnesota.
So we agree.
Yeah, I won't hear any more Green Bay slander from you, Glash.
Well, to be fair, I think, maybe I can't speak for Glash. I think Green Bay is good. I just think Minnesota is only one notch below them. And with the game being at home, like I do think this game should be closer to pick them. The Packers probably deserve to be slight favorites, but like I also think this line will get to 3 at some point, and at that point, I think there's value on the.
It's definitely. I mean, it's a big move from 2.5 even to 3.
Plus, it's 1 o'clock. Kirk Cousins, different person at 1 p.m. than at 4 or 8.
It's also against a winning record team, Kirk Cousins, which is like 1 in
that too
40 against or something.
Well, fine. It's just a question. I mean, my point is this: no one's touching the Falcons were the 7th seed as of 12:59 on Sunday afternoon, and now no one's touching them, right? No one's touching them. They're plus 450.
I'd rather take the Giants.
Which, that's actually good call. Cause I wanted to bring up the Giants and or the Eagles. I didn't see them on there this morning. So maybe that's changed. Let's see, to make the playoffs.
Giants are plus 1,200. I'm not actually doing that. I'm just using that as an example of a team.
The Eagles, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, they might have taken the Eagles off the board.
They've been off all day.
Who are they playing next week?
Saints, home. That was a pick-em, by the way, Friday last week. That was a pick-em. I think they're a 1.5 point favorite now against New Orleans.
Yeah, I feel like that's just some kind of oversight or glitch or something that the Eagles don't have odds up. There's no, I mean, maybe it's Alvin Kamara, but then why would the line for this coming game be up? So yeah, I think that's just mistake of some
probably
kind.
Just an oversight. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, let's do a little DFS too. We're reacting to yesterday. We will get to Monday Night Football very shortly here. Meiselman was kind enough once again to pass along the winning Millie Maker lineup. We haven't done this the last couple of weeks. I think it's worth diving back in and giving you both weighing in on your overall DFS approach and what's kind of developed here over the course of the year. We're 10 weeks into the season. We'll just start by simply asking Meiselman, what do you make of this winning build? Didn't we talk about Dearness Johnson, or someone did? Geoff, we talked about Dearness Johnson on Friday. He wound up in the winning lineup. There he is at 48% owned.
A lot of garbage time receptions for him in a game where they were destroyed by the Patriots. This lineup, this week was interesting. And I think it's really been a trend the last few weeks is that there's a receiver. There's been one guy each week, the last 3 slates, that has just gotten steamed up and had this crazy ownership 3 weeks in a row. So we had Michael Pittman against the Titans, and then we had Marquise Brown against the Vikings. Both those guys were over 30%. And then we had Mike Evans, same deal this week. I don't really get that one. Maybe people were hoping Chris Godwin would be limited. But there was some weird chalk this week, and the winning lineup managed to avoid it. So you basically you play the chalk at running back because Ingram and Johnson were just really, really cheap. Then you play the high upside guys that aren't as popular, and that's really all this was. This is actually the second time this year that I had a lineup myself that was only 3v3 off from the winner in Millie. And it was like similar build. It wasn't like the 3 most important players, because Stevenson was someone I really liked this week. We didn't really know what we were going to expect from New England's running game with Stevenson and Bolden. And I thought that just no one would want to play Stevenson because he had to clear concussion protocol. That would be kind of a scary situation. But there's just a lot to go around there without Damian Harris playing. And there's obviously upside for touchdowns anytime you have a running back who's going to be in there in the red zone. And then I liked Hunter Henry too. Jonnu Smith got ruled out probably 45 minutes before that game. And Henry only getting to 4%. I think that was an oversight by a lot of the field. So there were just some clever plays here. I think Johnson and Ingram were fairly obvious, but then you kind of just lucked into the right receivers, I would say, like getting CeeDee Lamb, but not part of a stack, playing Diggs, but not playing anyone from the Jets. I guess that's not as creative. Keenan Allen was fine. And the Eagles defense dramatically outscored some of the chalkier defenses who were around the same price. I think the Titans at 2,600 didn't do very well. The Lions at 2,300 limited the Steelers offense, but I guess on defense, it's really the touchdown sometimes the Eagles defense scored. So that's how this kind of all came together. I thought Johnson and Ingram were fine to play as chalk. You just had to do different other stuff, and that's what ended up working.
What other tight ends did well? Because Kittle's playing tonight. Kelsey and Waller are not on the main slate. Like who in the maybe the ideology of paying down at that position and folks just
Dan Arnold was all right. Dan Arnold was all right. Pat Freiermuth was a disaster. He was one of the higher owned tight ends. Kyle Pitts was doing well early, and then Matt Ryan just started throwing it to the Cowboys defenders on every single drive in the second half. So Pitts wasn't able to catch any passes after halftime. I think maybe he got one after halftime. So just actually, Freiermuth had a better game than I thought. I didn't realize he caught 5 short passes. I was mostly just thinking of the fumble. But
on this week, like 7 points, actually, it probably wasn't a disaster just because there was like one good tight end, really. And like Dan Arnold, I think had like, I think he had like 12 points or something. So,
right.
Oh, good call from Tom Pike behind the scenes. Maybe TJ Hawkinson was a favorite target for folks as well this week against.
Yeah, he didn't do well. I don't think he was.
Oh, Conklin was. Yeah, Conklin. That's right.
Conklin did well too. Conklin caught both of Kirk Cousins' touchdown passes.
Yeah, he really rode the right side of the touchdown look.
That was what stunk me because I played those 3 running backs, the cheap ones, Ingram, Johnson, and Stevenson, but I was looking for Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Justin Herbert as my quarterback. He was, I don't really understand what happened to the Chargers. But yeah, this was an interesting week. Like most of the time I would say just fade the chalk, but when the running backs are this cheap, you kind of just want to play them. That on the opposite side of the coin, though, Najee Harris was really popular. And that, to me, was an easier fade because I just thought there was enough of a chance the Steelers offense wouldn't be able to do very much without Roethlisberger in there.
The cheap running backs are typically, like Matt said, they just present such good value because running backs get so many touches. And that even if they get 15, 16 points, they're just so cheap that they usually end up in these lineups. It happens every year. We get a couple of these spots and it almost always ends up, they end up paying off somehow. So Johnson did it with the receptions, obviously this week.
Steph Diggs finally broke out too, right? I mean, he's the high scorer in this lineup here.
8% Stephon Diggs against the Jets too. That's a really, really good matchup. Like this is what was so weird about this slate. I thought Diggs and Lamb would both be double where they came in at.
Yeah.
And instead all of that ownership went to Mike Evans for some reason.
Yeah, Diggs' ownership was easily the most surprising thing about this lineup for me too.
Because Godwin was cleared to play first thing in the morning, right? We found out Godwin was playing. It's not like it wasn't like it was in the noon hour. We found out Godwin was out for Tampa, or he turned out to be active. So that's what makes that surprising too. Yeah, good point. I'm just curious now. It's Steph Diggs. That was his best game of the year. Yeah, I mean Steph Diggs had his best game of the year against a team where you worry maybe about possibly a blowout. Does he get the volume? And he certainly did. 13 targets, season best. That matches his week 1 total. Finally in the end zone again. He's been in the end zone now, I guess, 3 of the last 4. I guess I just haven't been monitoring Steph Diggs playing as well as he has. Okay, good stuff. I mean, that's a good outlook of what happened. And look, paying up or paying down at running back when the situations present themselves. Something to keep your eye on as far as the news throughout the week.
One more thing here that should have worked better. So I thought like my favorite kind of lineup that didn't do as well would be to play like 1 or 2 of these cheap guys and then pay up for someone like Christian McCaffrey, who no one was playing. He had, I think, 26 fantasy points in a game where he could have had 62. Like, I think that there was that much, because if you watch that Panthers game, you saw what happened in the red zone. He scored 1, it got called back. Cam Newton vultured 2 touchdowns from him. Chuba Hubbard scored a touch. Like, there was an upside there for McCaffrey to have an obscene fantasy total, and it just didn't work out. And now I'm sure starting next week he's going to be chalk again. So I think we've missed the boat on sneaky Christian McCaffrey. This was really like the 1 week where that could have worked out.
Carolina will be home with the Chase Young-less Washington football team. So that's a good call. Maybe we will get chalky Christian McCaffrey this coming week. Let's shift to Monday night. Again, we're here until 6:00 here on the Slate. Brendan Glasheen, Geoff Ulrich, Matt Meiselman, all from DraftKings. So the big news, of course, to me at least, is first of all, what kind of response are we getting out of the Rams tonight after what happened last Sunday night when they played the Titans, right? What kind of response do we get what does the offense look like with Robert Woods? He tore his ACL. He's out for the year. So without Robert Woods, OBJ expected to play, make his debut in limited fashion. That's from Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. Why don't we start on the sports book and dive into this one, fellas? What do we think? What do we think of the number, the total? What direction do we want to go in? What do we make of the news? How does this news, as a jumping off point, the Woods news, impact your thinking on the Rams, Geoff?
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really affect it at all, if I'm being dead honest. I mean, Van Jefferson has already been a part of the offense. Robert Woods wasn't, like he was just out there. I mean, he was a part of the offense, but it's not like he was the guy everything was flowing through. We know that's Cooper Kupp. We also know that like the Rams have other receivers like a Van Jefferson now that they can throw the ball to. Tyler Higbee's still a thing, can move the ball with the running backs a little bit. Maybe I'm downplaying it too much, but I haven't thought one second about Robert Woods and how this is going to affect this game. I guess there's a chance like they try and overfeed OBJ or something and it just doesn't work out and it kind of detriments them here. But I don't know. I think the San Francisco 49ers secondary being a little bit banged up is also an underrated story into this game. I haven't heard many people talking about that. I just don't think they're going to have the personnel to just shut down Cooper Kupp. And like I said, you've got Van Jefferson. You've probably got at least a couple plays coming for Odell Beckham that's going to help them move the ball a bit. And Sean McVay is probably tricky enough to throw in a couple other guys we haven't even heard about. I'm not really worried about the Robert Woods news at all because he hasn't really been making an impact this year. So,
all right. Well, so are you leaning Rams? I guess
I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess I should have given a take here.
Well, that's my.
I know it is kind of like the consensus. No, it's the consensus public pick here, but I do think like the Rams, I mean, they're the quality team here. I've kind of just seen enough from San Francisco. And like I said, I think that Kyle Shanahan is a good enough coach to get his team up here. And it's not like I think this is a slam dunk guaranteed like 5-star lock, but the 49ers are banged up in the secondary. And I just don't think they're going to be able to stop Matthew Stafford. And I do think there's going to be some opportunity downfield. And I think it could be Van Jefferson that ends up with a couple big plays here. It might not even be Odell. So I'm still bullish on the Rams here. I think they're going to be able to run too. Give me LA -3.5. I'll just join in with everybody else and jump off the cliff.
All right, Meiselman, 89% of the money is on Rams -3.5. A lot of the handle is well in on the money line for LA. The stat that's out there on Sean McVay after a loss, he's 14-6-1 against the spread. That includes a 9-2 record against the spread. Sean McVay as head coach of the Rams after a loss. So what do you think, Meiselman? You riding with the public?
So you both just laid out these strong cases for the Rams. So you have to know that I'm going to be leaning Niners after all that, right? Like I mean, I just think that this is probably too many points and the fair line is probably something like 3. Maybe 3.5 was the right line with Woods playing. I'll remain agnostic as far as whether Woods has a relevant impact. They do use him in a lot of ways that I think
Geoff,
kind of go overlooked. He runs out of the backfield. He's like actually, I think, an integral part of run blocking for them sometimes.
Yeah, Geoff.
And we don't really know. Like, I'm not sure Van Jefferson is good necessarily. I think he's a good fantasy player when there's no attention going towards him. So, like, I think there's a lot that we don't know about this game. We don't really know how much Odell Beckham is going to play. We don't know if Ben Skowronek, who I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, but we don't know if he can really play wide receiver. This is who's expected to start opposite Cooper Kupp. Maybe the 49ers can just double Kupp all game and not have to worry about much else. Like, I think there's a lot of ways this could go, but to me, it seems like the public is buying in more to the Niners playing poorly last week than they are to the Rams struggling recently. I think that, like, everyone saw the Niners just not even show up against the Kyler Murray-less Cardinals. And like, that's what's playing more into what people think, more so than like the Rams look really, really bad against the Tennessee Titans. So I do think the Rams probably win, but I don't know that they cover the 3.5. And then when we get to DFS, I think we have to talk about this Beckham wide receiver situation, because like, I think that's going to dictate a lot of what the right and wrong plays are for this game.
Yeah, and just another thought on the Niners. Like, when's the last time this year you felt good about how they played? Like, the one win they've had is against the Bears. They scored 33 points. They beat the Eagles.
They played well against the Bears, but like, that was a game no one watched basically right there. I forget what other game was in that afternoon window, but that was like, they played the Bears at 4 p.m. when like everyone had tuned out for the day because, you know, they had all like gotten too frustrated watching the 1 p.m. slate, which I think happens a lot of the time. And like, yeah, like those games still count just as much as a primetime game or a game that people
Their
saw.
indie game, the indie home game Sunday night, they looked awful. I know it was awful outside as well, but
the Chicago game is just as important as that one.
It's kind of the MO with Kyle Shanahan. This is why I actually hate betting against the 49ers. I'm really not very comfortable taking the Rams, but it would be the side I'm on. And I may already have some action on there, but it's Kyle Shanahan is just very good at like just getting game plans that just beat certain teams. And sometimes it doesn't always come together for him, but like he beat the Rams last year with like Nick Mullins or something at quarterback, you know, when everyone was off him. And it does feel like a similar spot, but I just feel like the Rams, they're a better team than they've looked the last couple of weeks. And I do feel like this is the spot where they probably get it together. I mentioned those injuries on defense too. I think that's going to play a part in this for the 49ers. I also think the Rams are going to be able to run the ball a little bit. And Sean McVay has gone to like a 12, like a double tight end set before, and it's worked out well. And I could see that being something they do with Woods out tonight. So I think there's multiple ways for the Rams to fix this. And I think that ends up happening. I do hate the fact this is such a public bet. I do hate the fact that it's the 49ers who I hate betting against, but I'm still on the Rams here. And I don't know. I think maybe it's like a little bit of a high number, but I can't put my faith in the 49ers right here. Any props before we shift over to the showdown? I love George Kittle props today. I went over it all this morning. I don't know if Matt has a different take on it, but I mean, Kittle's destroyed the Rams.
Receiving yards, receptions. He's at 5.5. That has plus money.
Yeah. It just feels like, what's his receiving prop up to now?
60.5.
Yeah. It was 57.5 4 days ago. So, or like 2 days ago, sorry. But I mean, Kittle's a guy who's averaged 74 yards per game over the last 3 years. He's averaged 97 yards his last 3 games against the Rams. He's seen 9.5 targets. Like there's been a clear target shift back to George Kittle. I just feel like that total is a little bit too low, even at 60 yards. So I like him. I think you go big. Kittle is a guy who's, gone over 125 yards multiple times in his career over the last 3 seasons too. He can go into the player parlays and get him for like 125 yards and a touchdown to like plus 1,400. I think there's a lot of ways. I just feel like he's being a little bit undervalued here. Like, this is a guy who like set records at this position. He's essentially Travis Kelce, like a number 1 wide receiver out there. He's kind of getting discounted. So I think going over on George Kittle props is a good spot for it.
All right, Matt, you got anything? Props?
I think that's a reasonable call. I don't feel especially strongly about any props. I mean, I'm curious to see what kind of pregame announcement we get on Rams starting receivers. Like if they change their mind and say he's actually going to play every snap, like his props only in the 30s. So like, I'm just keeping an eye out for that. But otherwise, I don't really have a strong take on anything. But I think it is a good spot for Kittle.
What is Odell's prop there?
32.5 yards.
Yeah. It's pretty tempting. You've got to figure McVay's got like 3 plays where he's just like Odell's going to get the ball in his hands. And if one of them just breaks, I don't know. It's probably just best to lay off unless we get better news.
And
it's really tempting with a guy like Odell who, can just catch like 130-yard pass and get you there.
When the Cardinals, Niners or Rams face each other, I feel like there is like a measuring stick contest between Shanahan, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Sean McVay, Shanahan, and then Kingsbury. Yeah.
It's like the 3 cool hip guys, like who can be hipper.
And Matt LaFleur, but he's not in the division, but I just feel like,
he would be in there if he was part of the NFC West.
Let me show you what I can do with my new toy.
But that's kind of why I like the Rams in this spot, because I really feel like McVay's got the healthier team. He's got Odell. I feel like this is a spot where he's prepping to kind of lay one on Kyle Shanahan, who's maybe his team's a little discombobulated and they got injury issues. So that's kind of why I don't mind jumping on the public with the Rams here. It's really not like a strong take. Again, it's really just narrative, but that's kind of just the feeling tonight.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle, you're going to trade up from 12 to 3 and take Trey Lance. Neat. We're going to trade more first-round picks. Go get Matt Stafford. Block him from you. I don't know. I just feel like McVay, after a loss too, it's a great spot for them. I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I kind of am interested. If you're looking for a touchdown prop, I'm kind of interested in Sony Michel's touchdown props. He's had 8 red zone touches. He's out-touched Henderson in the red zone. a little bit. It kind of feels like he's starting to earn some trust. It's been that goal line guy. I don't hate it. Maybe like a first touchdown bet. Again, it's not like a prop I love to go on, but if you're looking for something, the 49ers aren't a good rush defense. They're probably easier to attack there. So his red zone touch has gone up. Just something to take note of. I really don't hate that prop tonight.
Okay, good stuff. Henderson's at plus 650, but then it almost triples with Michelle for the first score at plus 1,800. Okay, let's go to the showdown. There is a Millie Maker tonight on DraftKings. Be sure to get involved. $20 entry. Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford, Garoppolo, Henderson, Samuel, your top 5 most expensive players. Geoff, you had mentioned Cooper Kupp. You think that the Niners are going to have trouble, a suspect Niners back end because of their injuries. So are you into Cooper Kupp as a captain's play?
God, I mean, it just feels like everyone's going there. It just feels like, it's the safe play. There's no Robert Woods. The targets are guaranteed. I really feel like this is a night where there's 2 different ways to get off them. I think George Kittle is a really good option. Like I said, if the Rams do get ahead, there is a path for, maybe it's spread out scoring. Maybe Van Jefferson catches a couple touchdowns. Kupp just has an okay game. And then Kittle comes back with like 10 catches and ends up getting that ceiling game. I think Kittle's ceiling is very similar to Kupp in this spot. I think there's a better chance Kupp hits a ceiling, but I think the other route is just attack with the Rams running game. I mean, you've got a big implied team total. You've got a bad rush defense. You could double up. You could use Henderson in the captain and Sony Michel and just fade Cooper Kupp altogether. So those are the 2 avenues I'm going with. I think for big field GPPs, I think fading Cooper Kupp in the captain, as silly as it sounds, is probably the right move. Matt will tell us the real move though.
Matt. So Matt said a few minutes ago,
Maestro.
Matt said a few minutes ago,
Matt the Maestro, Meiselman. There we go.
He feels that I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think I kind of am right now. You feel the Woods. You basically told Geoff to shut it, and you think the Woods injury is important to note.
That's more or less what I said.
You kind of did. I was the one who filled in the blank. That's all.
I agree with a lot
feeling
of Geoff.
I get mine.
I agree with Geoff to a large.
I get my feelings hurt with this company every day.
That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of asked for it.
Doing a good job.
Anyway, go for it.
So I really like the Henderson call. I don't necessarily think Cooper Kupp has a bad game, but like Geoff said, he's going to be popular. I think that the only player I'm less interested in playing a captain than Cooper Kupp is Matt Stafford, because I think that the game script that will favor the chalk the most is one where a bunch of Rams receivers do well, where you have Van Jefferson's underpriced. We have Skowronek underpriced. He costs $200. If he's playing any meaningful snaps, like he's far too cheap. I don't know that I want to play him because he might, 4 points for $200 is a good value play, quote unquote. But like that doesn't necessarily win you a tournament. He's more of a cash game play. So I think a lot of people will play him. A lot of people will play Jefferson. A lot will play Kupp. You just naturally play Stafford with all those pass catchers, and Darrell Henderson goes really overlooked. So even though I think the Niners keep the game close, like what you're really, showdown doesn't have to align with what you think will happen in the game. You're just trying to capitalize on the variance of the situation. And we could get a game where Henderson just gets the ball at the goal line. Like that's all this takes for it to work out. Cooper Kupp could have 8 catches for 100 yards. And he's not the winning captain because Henderson scored twice and Kupp didn't score. So I think playing for that situation is really like the way to go for me, like the quickest way to leverage where the field is playing a lot of receivers. You just play Henderson. I think Higbee's fine. I think playing 49ers passing game guys is fine. Eli Mitchell, like I'm pretty neutral on just about everything in this game, except for that I want to play Henderson ahead of the Rams passing game just because of what the field seems to be doing. The other thing I want to say on passing games, though, is that it's made all these headlines that Robert Woods is out and that Odell Beckham's on the Rams now. I have no idea like what the field is going to do with Beckham, but we do have a low-key injury on the 49ers side with Mohamed Sanu out. And Jawan Jennings and Trent Sherfield are both the minimum also. And I think that people might forget that those are guys that actually are going to be on the field. Like neither of them really does very much generally. But Sanu is like he's a reasonably big part of their offense. And especially if you're playing for a game script where the Niners are behind, you could see more snaps for their supplementary receivers. So I think especially in a lineup where you have Henderson and captain, playing one of these two like random 49ers just above practice squad guys, like I think that does make sense. So I'm a little bit interested in both of them.
I can't imagine many people playing Beckham, right? Because of the unknown.
Well, also the price. He is like, for what his perceived role is, $7,400 is way overpriced for him.
Yeah.
So I actually am a little interested in that. My fear is that people see the name Odell Beckham and they click it because it's interesting and it's new. And I don't have a great feel for if I knew that he was only going to be 10% tonight, I'd be very excited to play him. But I have this just lingering fear that he's going to be 25, 30%. And we actually saw this with Josh Gordon, his first game with the Chiefs this year, where like it didn't make sense for people to really play him. He came in like 30%. So I'm a little worried that the same thing happens here.
You think we get a high scoring game?
I'll go medium. I'll let Geoff weigh in more, but like I don't think it'll be especially high or low.
I mean, we can talk about the total. It's at 50.5. It was at 50 earlier today. It's kind of gone back and forth. It opened up at 49, then it went to 48. Now it's back up to 50. I only bring that up because I wonder, like, I see Van Jefferson down the list here, and there he is at 8,100 in the captain, 5,400. I mean, maybe it's if OBJ is not integrated completely, Van Jefferson's your number 2 tonight. And if we think we're going to get a high scoring game, maybe Van Jefferson is a cheaper captain's play and you want to get as many pieces like a Kittle and a Kupp and Stafford. I mean, you want to work in Henderson. You want to work all those pieces in. Maybe Van Jefferson's not a bad idea.
Oh, I mean, I think Van Jefferson's a great idea. And it's just that everyone is going to think Van Jefferson is a great idea.
Okay. I'm the public.
I think, well, no, it's fair. I mean, we should talk about him. It's just, does he have enough upside to play in the captain spot? I think is like the bigger question, right? Because he's cheap. Maybe. That's probably one way where you get, like, if everyone's using him, I don't think many people are going to put him in a captain spot though. Like, I don't think his captain's ownership. You could see a spot where he's like, 50% owned and then like 5% owned in the captain spot or something like that. I think that's interesting. I have more interest in him as a play like that. But I brought up Sony Michel before. Yep. I think at that same price, again, if you're attacking the Rams and you want to swerve off the passing, I mean, I think you can definitely play both Rams running backs. There's definitely a chance with like a 28-point implied team total, with whatever they have, that both running backs find the end zone. Or maybe Henderson just gets there in volume. So that's kind of something, just the way you got to look at it. But Van Jefferson is definitely in play. As far as your question about the over, I mean, both these teams are like 5-3 against the over.
Yep.
It's two good offensive coaches. This is one where I leaned over. I see this game playing out similarly to how San Francisco played against Arizona. I think the Rams are going to be able to play here. I'll be honest, the total is just not a bet for me. If I was going one way, I would probably lean over because I think that the Rams passing attack does get on track here. And I think the 49ers probably score enough points with like Kittle healthy again to keep up. But so I see, I could see like a 30-21 game here, which would put us just over. But I think this total's pretty correct. It's not really something I'm interested in betting.
So the Rams to the over 5-3-1, San Francisco to the over 5-3. And when San Francisco hit the over in the 5 times, they've done it 3 times at home. In Santa Clara, the over is 3-1 for their games. And maybe we have to factor in too, like say they do get down 7-0, 10-0. This is it for them. Right. If you're 3-6, I don't know. I think you're done. But if you're 4-5, you're still in it. As we discussed off the top of the show, they are one of those teams that's vying for the final 2 playoff spots. So this is and there's, of course, we know they're not getting the division, and they know another team, the Rams, they're playing tonight, is going to get one of those wild cards. They got to win this game. I mean, I know I hate using that narrative of, it's a must win. I mean, everyone wants to win every week, but this time of year. If you're 3-5, like they need to pull Kyle Shanahan, you got to pull out every bag or every trick out of your bag tonight.
Yeah, I think this game has a chance of getting a little wild. Maybe you see like a 30-28 game, and it does end up being like kind of like, the San Francisco 49ers last chance. That's why I'm leaning over. But like I said, I do think this total is about correct for me.
All right, good deal. Any other thoughts? Do we want to look ahead a little bit to next week? We kind of already did. Any NBA hockey takes you want to get off your chest before?
Should we go over like maybe just our favorite like lines for next week? Like,
sure. Yeah, it's a great way to go.
Let's do that. I'm gonna give one final thought on this game. I agree with. I don't even think that you guys have realized that you've said it, but to me, these are two teams that are both underperforming and both should play better. So here's my bold take for the game. This is going to be a better football game than what we've seen from recent primetime games like Ravens Dolphins. I don't even know what happened. That was just like a blackout.
That was so bad.
My take is I think like it is true. These teams are both underperforming. We should see a better played game. So I don't really know what that means as far as the total or anything, but like, maybe it's just optimistic, right? Like these teams will just play normal and do like real things that football teams are supposed to do.
Yeah. When was our last like good primetime game?
Right. I think we'll finally get one.
Yeah. I mean, unless folks thought that the Jets maybe coming back to cover against the Colts was entertaining, but last Thursday night was bad. Like Chiefs Giants was gross. It's been a bit. And look, the Rams falling on their faces. Matt Stafford turning into the old Matt Stafford last Monday night was, or last Sunday night, whenever it was. That wasn't great either. So, all right, what do you think next week? What jumps out to you?
So I guess we've already talked enough about Vikings Packers. So maybe we should talk about a different game. To me, I think the Seahawks, well, we don't know that Kyler Murray is playing yet, right? Yet this line is still available with Seattle as the home underdogs at, is that that's up to 3 now?
3.
Like what is going on there? I'm not even convinced that with Murray playing that the Cardinals are that much better than the Seahawks. The Seahawks just got Russell Wilson back. He had a terrible first game back. You could say like maybe he was just rusty or something. Maybe the injury is really bothering him on his hand. I'm not sure, but I think there's a chance the Seahawks just start playing really well from this point forward, even though they looked so terrible last week. So like that is just a strange line. Maybe I'm missing something here, but to see Seattle +3 at home against Arizona when Murray is not even necessarily healthy, it's just very weird.
Mm-hmm. And I think Wilson did make mention that the thumb thing had no impact on how he performed. Maybe that's just him trying to cover up. He didn't play well, but he did not blame that for why they didn't score any points against that very good Packers defense, Geoff.
Yeah, no, the Seattle game was the first one I was going to point out too. Even if Kyler plays, he's not going to be 100%. At least I don't think he's going to be 100% by this Sunday. I think you give Seattle a week to get in it. It's basically a do or die game for them next week at home. I love that line. You get 3 points there. It's the NFC West division. These teams are all super close. Love that. Interested in the Dolphins, whose secondary has under the radar been getting very healthy and playing very well of late against the Jets. That defense could just win the game by itself with like 3 picks or something. I think 3 points to the Dolphins is fair. If you can get it under 3, even better. And then the other one, I really don't hate the Bengals. I think you need to start picking on the Raiders here. I think this team is there's just too much going on. There's the coaching change, everything going on. I just don't think there's motivation there at this point. I think the Bengals coming off a bye. The Bengals are a solid team. And it's basically a pick 'em. It might even, who knows where the sentiment's going to go. But at a pick 'em, at one point, I'm taking the Bengals.
Last 3 weeks, a big narrative. This was a big topic, Geoff. I know you weren't here last Monday, but I felt last week broke a lot of people. Underdogs did very well. Broke me. I don't know anything. I still don't know anything, but I felt like I knew something.
I thought I was going to get bailed out by the Lions money line. I was like, this is it. We're going to hit it. We're going to feel good about ourselves now.
No, underdogs.
You got your money back though, right?
Did get the money back. A big push.
Not a loss.
Yes, true. The push. Of course, those teams pushed. Underdogs last 3 weeks are 29-13. That's a 69 win percentage. Road dogs this season. Road dogs 57-32. They went 6-2 in week 10. I only bring that up because we have a couple of interesting road dogs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Unreasonable Odds podcast brings up some of these teams, and now they probably won't because I brought them up, and therefore they'd be having to take credit from me. But Colts are getting 7. Saints are getting 1.5. We talked about that against Philly as a road dog. Dallas is getting points against Kansas City, as Meiselman pointed out. Are we sure they're that good? There are losable games on that schedule. Colts are playing Buffalo. Those are some interesting teams I would think about maybe in a teaser format. Colts,
a lot of interesting games next week. Like we're going to find out a lot about the Chiefs. We're going to find out, I think, a little bit about the Bengals, about the Vikings. The Bills, like the Bills, this is a decent team. If they can't take care of this team, we really have to are they not the best team in the AFC anymore?
The Bills look fine against the Jets. I think the Bills will be fine.
I think they will too. I'm just saying it's if they don't play well, Matt.
Right. What if they don't?
They haven't played a good team. They've played Miami, Jacksonville, and the Jets. Their last three.
I think ultimately the Bills will be fine too. I'm not betting the Colts. I'm just saying. And then I think can the Saints bounce back here? I mean, the Eagles. I'm not really I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they keep just keeping themselves in it somehow. So I don't know. Interesting week coming up. Really,
the spreads are a lot more reasonable. There's only a handful of games that are over 10 points this week. So Houston, Tennessee, Giants.
I'm not really. Yeah, the games are all close. So that's what you're getting at.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, outside of a couple.
I think that most of those lines, though, those interesting road underdogs, I think a lot of those are just fair. The other one. Maybe the Cowboys aren't getting enough respect at 2.5, but I think because it's shy of a field goal, there's not much value there if there's any. The Chiefs deserve to be small favorites. Maybe it should only be a point. That's basically how I feel about it. Yeah. But who are the Bengals to be road favorites in Vegas? I know they're coming off a bye, but maybe there are just things about football that I don't understand, and these lines are made for reasons that I am not comprehending. But are the Bengals better than the Raiders? And are they better by enough to be favored on in an away stadium? I don't get what's happening there.
We need to go any second, but really fast. Jerry has a question, Meiselman. Top stud, top value, tonight's NBA slate. Got something for him?
Okay, I'm not going to do it because we have Jimmy Butler questionable at 8:00 and Damian Lillard and Fred VanVleet questionable in the same game at 10:00. So just leave lineups with the availability for those games because it's going to change. Whatever I say, it's not going to be the right answer an hour from now.
Okay. That's good. That's a good way
Injuries
to get
are a big deal in NBA.
It's professionally done getting out of it. Thanks to producer Eamon, T-Pike behind the scenes. For Geoff Ulrich, Matt Meiselman. Meiselman, you back tomorrow for NBA?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And I think Shirag Hira, who is also a DraftKings content specialist, will be joining us tomorrow for NBA on the slate. Be sure to join in on the sweat as well tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. You can catch it on YouTube, Twitch, and also on the Twitter live stream. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and best of luck with your bets and your lineups tonight, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow. Bye.